What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Token Black, aka Don Zalug. I make sure everybody eats. And today we got the first episode of the Different Dimension podcast. Clap it up, clap it up. First episode on the return. The Different Dimension podcast is going strictly Yu-Gi-Oh! Got the Different Dimension Tournament Series. A lot of things going on. So this is a big one. First episode back. Now let's get into it. So there is a new format that got announced called Genesys format. And Genesys format is every card is legal, right? Every card is legal in Genesys format, but every card has a point system. So we'll just go just so I can show it to y'all. And if you're not looking at the video, duelingbook.com is where you can test this at. But every card has a point system, right? Well, not every card. Some cards are free, but every card has a point system, right? You cannot get over 100. You can get to 100, but you can't get over 100. But every card is legal. So, and I know that's a lot of people wanted something like that, where this format is fresh. This format is fresh. It's not Edison, GOAT format, nothing but respect to those formats, obviously. But I want people to understand that this is new and this is fresh. So my initial thoughts on it, I was skeptical. I was skeptical when I first saw it because, it's a new Konami format. They've done, in the last couple months, Konami hasn't really been on anybody's good side. They did a lot of things to retro formats that retro format players, now I guess I can call myself a retro format player, did not like. So they weren't on anybody's good side. With this format, I've done more deck building than I have in the last 3 days than I have in the last couple years. So I'm actually deck building, actually trying stuff out. And I think that's a good sign. I think that's a really good sign. With, the fact that I haven't really deck built like that. Every deck that I have for Go or Edison is either something that I played before and just knew, or I ripped it from somewhere. So just the fact that I'm getting into the deck constructor, doing deck building, I think that's a good sign for how I feel about the format. I don't want to say there's meta-defining things that are happening right now, but there is going to be a meta. So you can play your favorite deck. The first thing I did was try to make Ghost Tricks. So you can make your favorite deck. Is your favorite deck going to be good enough to beat all of the other decks? That segues right into there is going to be a meta, which segues into a lot of these games that I've been seeing in high-rated scenarios are all Vanquish Soul. A lot of the Vanquish Soul cards are free. Vanquish Soul is already a good deck. Even their power cards, I think, were free or just super cheap. The first day, I saw a lot of Fire King. A lot of Fire King, but I haven't really seen much Fire King. I also haven't jumped in rated yet either, so. But I think rated will, eventually rated will iron itself out. This cannot be compared to retro formats other than the fact that you might see some of those cards played in an old deck or something like that. But this is completely fresh. It can't be compared to retro formats. So, but deck building in this format is different than any other format because you have the added pressure of your cap reaching 100. And it can get to 100 fast. For example, Pot of Greed is 30. Graceful Charity is 40, and I think Delinquent Duo is 20. So a lot of those cards that can be considered broken, they cost a lot. So you have to sacrifice, do I want to play this card even though it's broken? I think card destruction is 40 as well. Do I want to play this card because it's broken and take up a lot of my cap space? Or do I want to sacrifice that cap space? Because Graceful Charity, I tried to fit it into a Dark World build. Graceful Charity in Dark Worlds is pretty good, but it costs 40, so you can't play a lot of the other cards in the engine because of that. So that's another factor when it comes to deck building. And then the point system itself is really good. You know, there's power cards, there's cards that don't really cost that much. So, and then you also have to consider the side deck as well. So the 100 is not just main deck, it's throughout everything. So side deck and extra deck as well. So that same point system that I just talked about, the differences between, you have to consider that for your extra deck and your side deck as well. The meta right now is, I've seen Runic, I've seen a lot of Vanquished Soul, I've seen some Fire King. So there will become a meta, but the deck building specifically, you have to get really granular in the cards that you choose. Even in Vanquished Soul or something like that, do you play Ash? Which hand traps are you willing to play? Which hand traps do you think are the best? And then can you fit those hand traps based on their point score with all of the other cards in your deck? Now, for example, Ash Blossom is 15 points. So 3 Ash, that's 45 points, which is right close to half of all of your points. Droll was 7, so you can play 3 for 21, but now they bumped it down to 5. So you can play 3 for 15, which is a lot better. But is Droll the card that you need to play? Is that the better hand trap in whatever the format or whatever the meta when it shakes out to be? So hand traps is another thing. Not even just your main deck and your main combos, but the hand traps have their own. Peruli, I think, is 10. The other one is 7. The red one. So there's a lot of different aspects of what you need to consider when you're deck building in this deck. Whereas most people can say, most people in retro formats have something that they can point to that says this is kind of a iteration of that. This format doesn't have that.